Alright, yo, what's up? Andrew here with a quick little video. I wanted to go over a couple of things I made changes to in my user interface over the past few days. So the first thing that we got to talk about is Balanced Druid and Arcane Pulsar. So if you don't play Balanced Druid, all you really need to know is Arcane Pulsar is a talent which sometimes lets you do like a mini version of your big cooldown. What we need to understand about it is every time you use one of your spenders, either AoE Starfall or single target Star Surge, this ability, it's a buff, gets stacks. And when you get to 600 of your resource spent total, I think it's like 90 stacks, weird conversion thing, you get a little mini incarnation, which is your major cooldown. This is an ability that I have had in my Weak Aura package for the entirety of playing Balanced Druid, basically the entire expansion. And not once have I ever looked at this Weak Aura in combat. Not once. It just, I don't know. Something about it, something about my mental abilities, something about my lack of skill, whatever it is. I've never looked at it. And that's a shame, because it is something you can play around and make decisions about, which, as we'll get into in a moment, is kind of the point of this first little section. Before we get into decisions, let's talk about what changes I made. So right now, this is just some gameplay of the ability getting stacked up. You can see now it's at 550. When it gets to 600, that's when you go into Incarnation. So Incarnation is your major cooldown. The way I know that I'm in Incarn is these two bars here, the yellow and the blue one. That means it's time for the big damage. Now, the change that I made, so if you watch the Arcane Pulsar Weak Aura buff here, when I pass 500, you'll notice there's this little glowy bit around it now. That's all. That's the only change I made. I just made it start glowing when it's, within 100 resource of getting to 600. Now, as far as decisions that get made regarding this, this is a perfect scenario, right? So we're at the end of a pull, mobs are about to die. I'm very close to going into a free incarnation, a free major cooldown. The natural thing here is like, all right, this is also right before a boss fight. If you know anything about Nelthars, the next pull is literally a boss. So, of course, I want to save that free incarn for the boss. And now that I've got this little light thingy popping up, I actually am recognizing the fact that I'm very close to getting my free incarn. What you're gonna see me do is use one more Starfall here, get up to 590, which is 10 away from proccing the thing, and then just not press anything else. I remember being very conscious about thinking about this. Here you can see we're running up to the boss. I'm at literally one spender away. Now here, I'm gonna put in my dots and then use a spender to immediately get into my Incarnation Eclipse. Just like that. So that's the new decision point. It's saving, a couple globals of Starfire. It's just more efficient for getting into doing damage. I haven't really played with my changes here enough to really say if it's making a significant difference or not, but it sure does feel a lot better. I've known for a long time that playing around Arcane Pulsar is an important thing for an advanced Balanced Druid, or for, if you want to be pushing and min-maxing your damage on a Balanced Druid, you need to play around it. And for me, this is just the way that is working. So I'm gonna go back into the game real quick and just show the Weak Aura in a little bit more detail in case you're curious about that kind of thing. So Proc Glow is the thing that I added to the Weak Aura to make it a little more obvious. And I like this one a lot because it's a little less obnoxious than kind of like the Action Bar one. And it just feels a little bit better than kind of these autocast or pixel glows. Like this is a little, I don't want to say it's like unimmersive or like not true to World of Warcraft, but I don't know. The Proc Glow is the one that works well for me. Obviously, there's like a custom color on here. Usually, the Proc Glow would be, if you look over here at my bark skin, that's what it normally looks like. But yeah, Weak Aura is nice. Lets you add custom colors. And then as far as when it turns on, so there's a weird stack conversion thing that we don't need to get into with Druids and Arcane Pulsar, but just suffice to say, 85 is the same as 500 when it comes to the stacks that are shown above here, as we've seen over here. And yeah, if it's above 85 or 500, just make it glow. That's it. That's the whole Weak Aura. And that one little change has made a huge little difference. Okay, so let's talk about the other change that I made, which we're going to look at over here. So on most of my other characters, or all my other characters that I've played somewhat seriously in Mythic Plus, I always set up two things: focus, mouse over focus macro, so it's very easy to set a focus target, a focus kick macro, so that with one press of the button, or in my case it's actually my scroll wheel down, I can focus kick that target after it's been set. And then having the display of my interrupts and or CC abilities tied actually directly to the focus frame, so that they only actually show up if I have a focus target. I don't have an example of that specifically here. That is what kind of informed this other UI tweak that I made to my Druid. First things first, Balanced Druid, I've actually not bothered to set up the focus kick macro, because if you know anything about Druid, Balanced Druid, and Solar Beam, you'll know that A of all, it's a minute cooldown, so it's not something you're using very often or really going to be assigned to. And B of all, it's a blanket silence, so you can literally just kind of like throw it out and it'll do its job. Like, you don't actually have to be that precise with it. It is something I have kind of on my backlog list of things to add to my Druid's UI, but I decided to help myself be more aware of what my crown control and utility cooldowns are. A of all, this bottom row of my abilities, I just really struggle getting useful information out of that. I don't know if it's just a skill thing or mental overload, but the abilities down there, it's hard for me to quickly gather useful information from them. And you'll actually even notice, looking through my UI right now, the only places you can see, so A of all, Typhoon and Ursul's Vortex are not actually tracked anywhere, aside from this new one that I added. Incapacitating Roar is down here on the second row, but like I said, that one's hard for me to really get useful information out of. And then Solar Beam is actually only tracked in the Interrupt tracker over here, which, again, suffers from a similar thing. I can't quickly look at that and get information relevant to my current cooldowns. But I do know from past experiences that having these abilities on my focus frame, this is where right underneath these is where my focus frame would show up if it were there, that is actually useful, and I can get useful information out of it. So I was like, all right, I want to be better about keeping track of my CCs and being able to use them, so I'm going to just have these Druid interrupt abilities just there all the time. And I think it's actually worked out pretty well so far. So I've only really had one instance in a dungeon I did this morning where it came up, and I'm actually just going to play it for you now. Let me just set the scene. This is like the second or third pull in Neltharis. We pulled in, I think, 2 extra packs than we were planning on. As you can see, there's a lot of mobs on the screen. The problem there is there's like multiple of these Thaumaturges who cast Molten Core that needs to be interrupted. So I got this first one with my Solar Beam. And then I'm like, all right, I got my Incapacitating Roar. I'm keeping my eyes open for Molten Core. There, I see it. About to press Incapacitating Roar. I think I actually, do I interrupt? I don't know, we'll see. Yep, move, interrupt my cast to get the Incapacitating Roar off. All right, so now at this point, I literally said in voice comms, okay, I'm out of interrupts. Oh wait, I'm not. I have Ursul's Vortex and Typhoon, which not ideal because, you know, Typhoon knocks things back and gets the group kind of unspread. But hey, you know what? We got a crazy massive pull. We can't let this cast go off. I'm just going to do it and make sure that we don't die. So I dropped the Ursul's Vortex to try to mitigate some of the impact of things getting spread out from Typhoon. And I just wait. There's the Molten Core cast. There's the Typhoon. We got 2 of them, it looks like, which is super convenient. And then at that point, I am actually out of things to do. And so I think we just killed that guy, so that worked out. Anyway, so that's just a quick little example of how I was able to utilize this new UI element to better keep track of what I had available. Now, realistically, I would have known that all these abilities were off cooldown because I hadn't used them yet. This is the very start of the dungeon, and I know that I hadn't used them yet. But I was consciously looking at them, and it actually did remind me, like, oh yeah, you actually do have another thing you can do here. This Typhoon ability that you got. Sometimes I have Typhoon talented, sometimes I don't. Okay, so those are the 2 UI elements that I wanted to just take a look at and talk about. I think that I might try to do some more of these kind of UI tweak videos and just talk about them. A of all, because it's good for me, just improving my UI and getting a little bit better. And B of all, I don't know, I think stuff like this is probably a lot more interesting than just watching runs. But yeah, let me know what you think, if you have any opinions, if you don't have opinions, if there's more stuff you'd like to see discussed, if you'd like me to go over my UI in more detail, or have any suggestions. All these things I would love to hear about. So that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon. Bye.